Hey everyone! So we are here, me, Lenka, and Iman, on my channel Yoga British Kung, or maybe you are watching this on my Instagram. So that might be a possibility. I don't know where else it is going to be shared. Maybe you will share it somewhere.
Yeah, maybe on Facebook.
Maybe not. Probably.
I will.
No, no,
I
no.
will.
So we are all smiley and everything because we are happy right now, but we are actually here to talk about a very serious
Serious topic.
topic. It's because of the Black Lives Matter movement. The first question is how we met and how we know each other. I call Iman actually my friend, but we met probably like 5 times, maybe
Maybe
six.
6
This is the
in
seven.
like 4 years.
Yeah, she actually remembers
The date September 2016.
Wow. Okay.
Told you I'm a number person. I remember the numbers and the dates, but I don't know how and where we met.
You have some special part of your brain
Yeah.
that is focused on the
On
the
the
numbers,
numbers.
on the dates. So we met at a yoga charity festival, which was for
Support Ethiopia, I think.
yeah,
Water.
which is
Yeah.
funny because it's a little bit relevant.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I think it was even Sarah gave a yoga class, and then the money went to an Ethiopian, like an Austrian organization, but is helping people. I think getting clean water access in Ethiopia. I think that's so. It was a cool event. We did yoga, and then I was selling my jewelry there, and that's how I met Lenka.
And it's again amazing that you know these things because I knew like that it's for a charity. I wouldn't remember what charity, but you know even the cause, like the specific cause.
Yeah, because I worked with them a few times, so now
Okay.
I remember.
Okay, but I wonder if that's just the one reason, you know, maybe like you would still remember. I don't know.
No, I think because it was a fun day, and then there was a lot of people, and I met so many people on that day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There was a lot of
it was
people.
a lot of people. Yeah.
Anyway, so I remember very clearly this question that I asked you, and it was one of the first questions. And I remember it because of your reaction. And I mean, I don't want to be like defensive here,
Don't.
but I've heard you talking,
Yeah.
and I've heard your accent.
Yes.
So this was the reason why I asked you because I used to go to a French lycée. And I was able to speak French fluently in the past.
Some time ago.
So I ask you because I thought that you might be from France or from Canada because I could hear the accent. But I realized that this is probably a question that you get asked quite a lot.
All the time.
Yeah.
And actually, that's the first question that people will meet me, and the first question would be, "Where are you from?" And before I was fine, but now since I would say, I think in Austria, in Vienna, this is systematic. Where are you from? Where are you from? And I know that 99.9% of the people actually don't mean it bad. They're just curious. But how would you feel if you walk in the street and I'd be, "Hey, where are you from?" And you'd be like, you don't even want to know my name or what do I do for a living? You just want to know where I come from. So nowadays, I don't take it bad, but I always say, well, I come from my mother's belly. If that's the question you're asking. No, but where are you from? You mean, what's my origins? And I always tell people, well, is that going to change the way you see me? Is the way where I come from, is that so important that you need to know before you know the person? And then the people goes like, actually, no, I don't need to know where you're from. So, and then that's where I'd be like, well, my dad is from Lebanon, and my mom is from Central African Republic and Portugal, a little bit. And I was born and raised in Central African Republic. So that's where I am from, and French is my mother tongue.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. But it's a question that I find very aggressive. And I myself, I've never asked someone like that I just met, where are you from? Because I just don't care actually where you're from. I care about your energy, what you're sharing with me, what you're doing. And then yes, over the course, maybe later on, I may be interested, oh, actually, where are you from? Or what's your mother tongue? But this is not a necessity. It's not the first information I need to know because it doesn't matter for me.
I get asked the question because of my accent, of course, especially here we are in Vienna. We didn't say that, or maybe we did. In Austria, so Central Europe, and when people hear me speaking, they are curious, so they will ask it, and yeah, it's. I also don't. I also feel weird about it. I feel like, are you exactly as you said? Are you going to judge me just
Exactly.
because of
Your
where I actually
origins.
come from, and you are going to already create a picture? The difference is maybe that you get it asked much sooner.
Yeah. I get it systematically.
So people, without actually talking to you and like allowing their brain to create an opinion about you,
Yeah.
they already ask the question and then they have like a picture about you
Yeah.
before they even talk to you.
Exactly. That's you just said it in few words, but that's the way it is, and then they'd be like, oh, then what's your name? Or when I say what's my name, and oh, where are you from? Because my name is Iman, and okay, that's different. So she's not from here, so we want to know. So I get it that it's mainly out of curiosity, but it's not something that I've something that I have experienced very strongly since I live here in Austria since 4 years. Because previously I lived in Canada, and this was not okay. People did ask where I came from, but that was not the first thing that I was questioned.
I guess it's more normal in
Yeah.
Canada to be a black person than here in Vienna. Vienna is really not that diverse.
No, I think the problem is that it's not very diverse here, and I think in Canada it's just yeah, it's a little bit more multicultural. So you go in the street and see someone from pretty much every corner of the globe, which is totally fine. But I think people also don't ask. It's not something that you would go and ask because it's maybe seen as rude, or it's seen as it's kind of a discrimination just to go and ask, oh, she's from Slovakia. Oh, no. So you just don't do things like that.
Just to touch up on that, so you were born in
Central African Republic.
Central African Republic.
Republic, yeah.
I thought that you were born actually in Cameroon.
My father works in Cameroon. So it's a neighbor country.
Okay, okay, that's why I remember Cameroon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you? So did you go to school there? Like,
Yes. I was born there and then I lived there until I was 17. So I went to the French lycée in Bangui, which is the capital. And then I moved to Canada where I did my studies. And then after my studies, I worked a bit in Thailand, in Seychelles. And then I moved here to Austria. And I've been traveling a lot. So yeah, I guess travel taught me a lot, shows me a lot.
why did you choose Vienna?
It was as simple as because the program I wanted to do was here. I had three choices and I ended up choosing here. And my mother's first reaction was like, oh my God, they have Nazis here. And I was like, no, no. And it's funny because when I moved here, that was everybody's concern. So this is also a stereotype that I guess Austrian people have to live a lot with, the image that they have from the past. When I was back home in Canada for Christmas and then I said that I was leaving here, the women's reaction in the shop was like, oh my God, they're not racist. That was her first reaction. I was like, actually, I think they're fine. I mean, I think there are racist people everywhere. I don't think there are more racist in Austria than in Canada. But that was the image she had about Austria, and I find that interesting.
Yeah, maybe it has like a reason.
Yeah, probably a little reason. History, I'd say. History
Yeah.
plays a lot of role into like the background or the image people have about Austria. And also in I went to a French school, and into a French school, the Germans and the Austrians were always on the wrong side of history. So we always, I don't have, but a lot of people have that image that okay, in Austria people is still more on that side of the history than now.
So I'm not from Austria, but I'm from Slovakia, and there I think there is almost zero diversity. Also because the country is not as attractive, I guess, for people to come there and live there. There was almost no COVID cases there
It's amazing.
because no one travels there.
You're lucky. Be lucky on one thing. There is no international movement in Slovakia. You want to be free from COVID? Go to Bratislava.
Exactly.
That's good.
However, I know that so we have like a specific group of people. It's gypsies. They are somehow they came, I don't know, like they used to probably like travel, like live this traveling lifestyle, and they somehow ended up in Slovakia, and they have darker skin, and they are very poor, and it's very, I would say, similar, maybe even worse than in the US, with these people. And I know that from like my environment that it's really racism against these people, it's normal. So it's totally accepted in society. Yeah, and having a darker skin is very like looked upon, and of course, like having a tan is cool. But the moment you are,
Too dark, it's not cool. And this is something I always find extremely funny. For instance, when you go in summer and then you see all those people tanning and they want to be having a darker skin, but to a certain extent, to what extent being darker is becomes something bad, or you know what I mean? And I think in Slovakia, something that plays a big role, I think, in the fact that your country is not very multicultural or is not really open to people that have different origin. I think it has to do a lot with your history, with what the politics did to the people, and in difference, for instance, like in differences, in Vergleich, oof, my German, my English, and in contrast with, for instance, a country like France, where there's been a huge colonialism history, people just travel more within the colonies and the mainland. So I think it's also something that happened for centuries, and then people just got kind of used to seeing people that were different, which I think in Central Europe or Eastern Europe, that was not common until maybe a couple decades ago. So I think it's a process of like things needs to take time, and I also think that a lot of people are not enough educated, and I think this is, in my personal opinion, this is the big issue about racism or any sorts of discrimination. Actually, it's people are not educated, you know, they're ignorant, and their ignorance makes them feel powerful, and that is the problem. That's, I think that's the source of the problem, that people are just not educated.
social media is full of a lot of posts where they're trying to educate you, they're trying to tell you what you should watch, what you should read maybe. So this is really nice, and I already got inspired by many posts like that. And also I learned a lot already, and it's just from social media mostly, which is crazy. And I know from something that I watched that the education in the US is really like obliterating the African Americans from the history. They're not talking about them, and they don't take enough importance to explain certain things. Do you think the education here? I mean, you didn't study here, so it's hard to say for you.
It would be difficult to answer.
But of course, you did study in Africa, so that means that I'm not going to say Central
Yeah, in
Central Africa
in car.
in car. So you studied there. How much do you think was the history, for example, from Europe or from the US? Like, did you had mostly history about your country and your continent, or was it was there everything? And do you think this is biased? Like, or was it? I don't know. I don't know if this is actually appropriate to ask you. Maybe no.
No. It's totally appropriated, but my answer is biased because I went to a French school. So my history program was France, and then Europe, and then Africa. So as we were foreign school, but in Africa we did study colonialism and decolonialism, but that was it. You know, and we did study a little bit of the US and South America, but not so much because our focus obviously was France, Europe, and Africa. But I know that, for instance, just from my knowledge, the French system, the system I studied, is much more open, where we learn much more about the world itself than than a person that studied in the US, where they sometimes just learn a lot about their own state and not really about the entire country. So I think, yeah, for sure, the educational system, maybe that's something that governments will have to think about and maybe do some reforms, because the younger you start, I mean, the better it is. And I mean, it's history, okay? History cannot be changed, but you can still change the way people learn about it and how this will impact the decision they make, how they vote in the future, and yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, he had a nice YouTube video, or it was actually mostly him talking, and his solution for the problem in the US now was to educate more the policemen, because this is the biggest problem there, and to have like also better education, not just more longer, but also what they're going to learn. However, this should not apply only to policemen. So maybe some people think that you need to go deeper and you need to start from a younger age, as you said, that maybe like totally changing what is it taught at schools and how. But of course, it's like a whole complex kind of thing.
What do I think about that?
Well, actually, that was just something I wanted
Or
to
it was
say.
a comment?
It was just a comment.
I think it's a good thing. Totally think that I'm not a pessimistic person, but I'm very realistic, and I think it's very difficult, or it will be very difficult to educate people that already reach a certain age. You know, you do so many things sometimes out of your subconscious, it's just automatic. How are you going to invest so much time and effort and money into people if they don't want to change? That's an issue. If they want to change, that's an issue. How are we going to make them change? How are we going to make them be educated about the racial issues that there is in this country? Being realistic, I don't think it's something that will be really working, but something that can work for sure is educating the younger ones. And I think you and me in the course of our lifetime, we're probably going to still see racism. It's still going to be very present. But I think if our kids or the kids of our kids already being raised with a kind of a no racial boundaries or so, I'm pretty sure that in the coming generation that they won't have that barriers to races as we are facing today.
Yeah.
So I think it's more a long-term. I think anyway that is a long-term solution to the problem, because it's great that so many things are happening now. It's amazing, but I'm always afraid that as any movement of liberty or of freedom, you know, there's always a moment that comes where people get tired of it and then they stop. So it's great to do all those noises, but why do we do that if in 2 or 3 months we stop and we get forgotten and then we have to start from scratch again? But if we really said, okay, we're going to focus on education, it's a slow but steady growth.
Long term.
It's a long-term solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is actually a topic, especially in the US, that is, it's not just like right now happening. It's happening, but it's not happening in such a huge scale as it is as it's doing now. Because I was just watching TV show. I don't know if you saw my stories, where they were actually like on topic, although they did shoot the episode really long time ago. So it's something that some people think about probably all the time. Especially because I know the creators are diverse somewhat. So I know that they like to talk about these kind of topics and introduce it into what they are creating.
Yeah.
So the real reason why everything on the movement is getting so big, I would love to say that it's just getting bigger now, but it's really, and it's really always there, but is because of George Floyd and how it was shared in the social media. I don't actually know. I think it was. I think she was streaming the video.
I think so, but to be honest with you, when that was released, I didn't even watch the full 8-minute video, because I'm a very sensitive, emotional person, and I knew this would affect me in a way that I don't want it. So I preferred not to watch the entire video, because I think this was just too painful to watch. But I think it was shared. I think it was alive, and then people just started sharing it.
I even read somewhere that she's now being bullied, that she didn't act. Although I think she was saying something.
I think she was saying something, but the three, if I remember well, I think the 3 other officers were around. So even if she did try something, she would have probably been again the one on the floor with a knee on her neck. So
Exactly. I can't even imagine to be in her position. And I would probably not do, to be honest, what she did.
Yeah, you probably be. I don't know. I would be terrified. I don't know how I would react. I mean, it's always easier to criticize and say she should have. But if you're in that situation that no one can ever imagine to be in, how would you react? I don't know how I would have reacted.
And I realized that we have different, although I might have a different reaction from most of the people, but we were sitting in front of, what was it, a
A bubble
bubble
tea
tea
coffee
shop,
shop, yeah.
and we were just on the bench talking casually, and there was supposed to be a demonstration later that
Yeah.
evening about Black Lives
Matters.
Matter, and there were policemen because they were around the whole city the whole day, and because of the COVID situation, there were restrictions. There are restrictions in Vienna that you're not supposed to stay as close as you're supposed to be to other people, and there was this line in front of the shop created, and a typical Viennese older person came and started to be really angry about the line and the people that they are too close to each other, and two policemen that were actually before there, and
Yeah.
they didn't do really anything, started to take care of the
Yeah,
situation.
Yeah.
And the reaction from me was to smile and try to be somehow friendly, although that might seem aggressive that I am laughing at the situation, so it's also not the best, but this is my reaction, how my mind and my body reacts, just to like smile and try to pretend to be nice and non-conflicting. However, you seemed much more scared, and you maybe have like experience with police from before, maybe, I don't know, or maybe you have just a respect towards them that is like brought to you by parents or by also media and by what you see in the movies. So what did you
My
feel?
reaction. So, like I said, I was born in Car, and Central African Republic is not the safest place to grow up in the world. So we've had a lot of wars and rebellions. So I've seen a lot of AK-47 and corpses in my life, unfortunately. So this is one of the main reason I'm afraid of any man or any police or army, any person that carries a gun, because I know the person who carries a gun has the power, and you never know how this person can react. So actually, I have developed a fear of guns, of weapons. So when I see a police officer, I'm always a little bit pause, or you could see it as respect. But it's not respect. I'm just being a bit afraid. I'm always. This has nothing to do with my color or anything. It's just the fact that I have personal issues with guns and I don't like it. So that's why when we saw those two police officers and screaming at a bunch of teenagers waiting for the bubble teas in the line, I was like, oh my god, they're being so rude just for that. So they could be rude for God
Yeah.
knows what, and then they have a gun in their back. So this is for me. That's the reason why I'm afraid of. Personally, I have never had any. I did have an encounter with the police. Yeah, I think
Was
like
it
2 months ago during quarantine.
uh,
I was riding my scooter in the wrong side of the road, and then he stopped me, and I was like, "Oh no, he's gonna give me a fine because I'm not supposed to go out at that time, or what's the problem?" And basically, it was because I was on the wrong side of the road, so I was doing a mistake. But he spoke to me, and the first thing he was like telling me in German, like, "Do you speak German?" And I was like, I do speak German and I do understand what you're telling me. So I didn't understand why he said that. When he spoke to me, I was just shocked because I was being stopped by the police and 11 p.m. in the night, so I didn't know what to expect. And his reaction was like, "Can you speak German?" Yeah, I can. So I suppose he asked me that question because, well, I'm a colored person, right? So,
for
but
sure.
apart from that, no. Never.
They never ask me if I speak German. They start
To talk to you
directly.
in German, and you're like, I don't speak German. You see how odd, how
It's a
odd.
it's a big difference.
Yeah. So this is definitely, I guess, the color of my skin, and I know I know and I'm aware that to a certain extent I have privileges compared to my other friends that come from Africa and that have darker skin color because I'm a little bit white. For some people, I'm a bit white. And for other people, I'm black. And this is something I had to grow up as a mixed child. This is something that is important to understand. It's extremely difficult because when you grew up in Africa, you're seen as a white person there. And then you come to Europe or to the States or Canada where we spend summers, you're seen as a black person. And then you're in the middle and then you never know where you belong because it's a natural thing to want to be belonging to some type of groups or community. And this is something that especially with because I'm mixed, I had to grow up. I didn't have any racial issues or problems. Actually, we never spoke about race in my family because my dad is white and my mom is a mixed. So that was never a problem about races. So we always grew up and actually never heard about racism. It sounds stupid, but I've never heard about it until I really moved to Canada and I was shocked because then things happened there and then people spoke about it and but I living from where I lived, it was totally normal to be the way I was. Until my mom told me one day when I was in kindergarten, so I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and the teacher was French because it was a French lycée, and she preferred me. She just liked me more. And one of the reasons she liked me more is because I was lighter and I was prettier and then I was smarter and all my other friends that I was playing with, which were Africans, well, you're in a French school in Africa, so kids are Africans. She preferred them less. And I think that questioned me a lot because when you're so young, you question why does she like me and why does she doesn't like my buddy that I spend the whole time playing with. And my mom told me that one day I came home and I asked my mother if I was white or if I was black. And I was not even 6 years old. So you see the impact that education plays on at such a young age is super important. And that's when my mother told me that the color of my skin didn't play a role in the person that I am or what I feel or what I am or how I perform, that I'm just the person I am. That woman was just a French teacher in Africa and she was racist. So she probably had a tough life having a job in a country where she probably wasn't happy because she didn't like the people she was working with. But that's just an example of how little acts like that. To imagine if that would happen with a white kid. So that white kid would grow up with the idea that he's superior to his African friends because he's smarter, whatever, just because he's white. And this happened when I was 4 or 5 years old. So I can imagine that this happens a lot in many places in America or in Europe where teachers just tend to prefer someone more because of the skin color.
Yeah, I think you are like in a special situation because you had parents that were like
Already,
already diverse.
exactly.
So this is what you literally were born into. So you didn't see difference. You didn't. So you are the least biased person
Yeah.
to talk about this probably.
Yeah. For me, it's such a difficult topic to talk with my friends sometimes, from both sides, like white or black, because I'm kind of in the middle and I have never lived with the extremes because we were raised as we never spoke about it, never, you know. So for me, it's just normal to be different. I mean, if you can call that different, it's just normal for me that we're from different backgrounds. My parent comes from different countries, have different color. My parents have different religions, and they're still together. And we grew up like that. So for me, it's so difficult, and I have so many discussions. It's so difficult to try to understand someone who would judge you on the color of your skin because for me this is so absurd. Like, why would you do that? You know, it's like you would ask me. It's like some people sometimes ask me, and that's a question that I always find interesting. Like after where you come from, people always ask me where if I feel more Lebanese or more African. Yeah, that's very often. And I'm like, because I guess they want to know if I feel more kind of whitish or more blackish. I think that's my interpretation. And I always tell them, well, do you like your mom or your dad more? You just like both, right? So it's the same. You don't have to be something more and something less. You just,
You don't have to pick a side.
yeah. So
You
when
can
you're,
be both.
exactly, when you're mixed, like people tend to want to know if, like, what are you more? Like, are you a more whitey? Like, do you feel more like that? Or no, I just feel who I am. And this is funny, but
Again, they are trying to find probably a box to put you in, or
exactly. And that's again people trying to do their stereotypes where you can fit in that box, and which is extremely difficult for mixed child or mixed people of a mixed color because you kind of never really know where you're supposed to be fitting in until you really like. I was raised with my mom was really strong and really always told us that this does have nothing to do with how we perform or how good we were at things. It's what you did that matters. So for me, I never actually really until today I don't care. I mean, it's really, I think, okay, if I don't get an opportunity, I will not think it's because of the skin of my color first. I will question myself. I'll be like, maybe I didn't work hard enough, or maybe I didn't give my best. That's for me the first thing. But I know for so many of my friends, it's, they would first, well, obviously because it's the skin of the color that plays a role before. So that's kind of a privilege, I would say, for me too, that I was raised by a mom that didn't that didn't let the race play such a big role in the way we see things.
in the TV show that I'm watching, this Dear White People. You saw it?
And no, I
Uh,
don't
I
watch
know,
shows.
I know it's based on on a movie. So maybe we can watch a
A movie,
movie.
yeah, yeah.
It actually has quite a lot of seasons, so it will take some time,
Yeah.
even if you would want to watch it. They have a community of black people, and this is also because they are in America. They are trying to stick together, and it's also a case if you like something. So you feel ashamed if you, for example, listen to music by white people. So they also have some kind of a shame of being too white or whitish. So that they understand that there is like people want to actually, as you said, to be part of something,
Yeah.
and it feels somehow good, but then you have to abide the rules of the group, which is crazy because I mean we are still, yeah, you are you, as you
Yeah.
said, and you are not supposed to, you can be whatever you want.
Yeah. I think that comes back to what you said before. People want to put you in the boxes, and because I mean, human beings are made to be living in the groups or in the communities. You don't want to be the person standing out of the community. So you just, I think racism has to do a lot with group effects. You would have a group of young kids and one would be or two would not like, I don't know, would not like someone from a certain color and that would influence the other ones. And because the other one don't want to be seen as the losers or they're not cool or then I think it's just a group effect. And I think a lot of people, I sincerely believe that there's a lot of racists, but not as much as we think. And I think a lot of people are just being influenced. And if they're being proved that they're wrong, they change. A lot of people they just need to be confronted, or they just need to be a little bit open-minded. My best friend comes from south of Austria, and there's not much colored people there, as probably not. And then I spent a lot of time there, and a lot of people, because she has a hotel, would come, and clients would look at me or would be cold at me at the beginning. But now they see me so often, and they talk to me, and then yeah, and then I think they have this image that left because they were confronted by the fact that, oh, actually she's nice, and actually she can talk, and yeah, because in their head, a lot of people who never traveled, they see people coming from a certain area of the world as poor, as uneducated, as inferior. But once you actually interact with them, they're like, oh, actually,
You are a human.
Yeah, you're human, or I just listened to propaganda, or God knows, and I was just blinded.
It's again the education.
It's education. Yeah.
Yeah, and then stereotypes that are actually even enforced by how the society works, especially in the U.S., where they are like not doing enough, or I don't know, like they are actually not doing enough, but they are preventing. They have laws that actually prevent from for the people to get integrated more and get the opportunities, so they stay in that stereotype, unfortunately, and that's just like making it stronger in the.
It's a vicious circle at the end of the day.
So another question is, I didn't even know that. I mean, of course, I realized it, for example, with the first question that I asked you, or it was maybe not the first one, where are you from? And I think this was already a microaggression. And then I actually wanted to ask you a question that I learned later that it's a microaggression. And it was because I watched another video by a YouTuber, MKBHD, who is a black person, and he was talking about it. He was talking about how he was sometimes wondering if he got, for example, into a team or into a school because of his skin color. And I wanted to ask you if you ever came into such a situation, but I know now that if I would ask you, like, do you think, like, literally in a normal situation, you would get into some kind of sports team or, for example, into school, and I would ask you, like, do you think maybe it was because they wanted to have a more diverse thing? So I would like suppress or maybe make your contribution smaller by asking you that, or maybe I would actually express that I think that you didn't work for it enough in reality. So I don't want to ask you ask you that, but I know that you have some stories that you can tell us about microaggressions and about how people maybe subconsciously ask you stuff or assume stuff or tell you stuff that over time it accumulates and it's actually very annoying. And I also know Laruga Glasser, the Ashtanga teacher from Stockholm. She told she was having an IGTV where she was talking about this, and this is like the most common kind of racism she encounters, and it's a lot, even here in Europe.
Well, it's funny because most of my mini racist aggression, whatever you call it, that occurred in Europe, and not when I was living in Canada. I think maybe more happened, but the three main that I can remember is because there was always someone with me, so the reaction of the person with me, that's what I remembered. Because I think when it comes to racism, there's two types of people. You have the type of people that are very something would be said or done to them and they will react aggressively, or they would be mad and they would shout and they would talk about it. And then you have the other part, which I am, and I'm a very passive person. I could not bother, because I actually feel sorry for the person. I came to a state where I'm like, you're so ignorant that it hurts. I feel sorry that you feel the way. You must feel so bad in your own body to just hate a person just because that person is different than you. So I'm very passive. So I'm sure that more happened, but because I'm such a passive person, I didn't bother. But the three, right now, I have three situations that happened to me that I can share. The first one, I think I was in Italy. No, not, well, one was in Italy, but this one was in Greece. And I was flying back to Vienna. I was in Santorini for a few days, and we were all queuing up to do the security check at the airport. And a super long lineup, I don't know, 100 people. And I see a police officer looking at me, and you feel it when someone looks at you, and I was like, he's looking at me, like I know he's looking at me. And then my friend was there, and I was like, I'm sure he's coming here. And he comes, and he asks for my passport. And my friend now goes like, why don't you ask me my passport? Why don't you ask their passport? Why do you come all the way to ask her passport. And I was like, never mind, just let's not make a fuss about it. I just show it. And she was like, no, what's the big deal about it? Why can he ask me my passport? And the guy started arguing, and I was like, we're not arguing. I just went in my bag, just pulled my pass. He didn't even look at it because he saw I had a passport, and then he left. So I don't know if in his mind he wanted to know if I was a refugee or kind of, no idea. Maybe he thought I was, I don't know, an asylum seeker. I had no idea, but he just wanted to know that I had my papers. So that for me, that's typical description of racial profiling. So he just saw me out of the 100 people standing in line. I was the only one who was a bit darker, had curly hair. Well, I'm gonna ask her. She must not be from here. I could have been Greek. My dad could have been Greek. My mom could have been Greek, but no, I was different. So that was something that I was like, okay, but for me, it didn't matter because I was like, "Pff, I know there are people like that, so I just don't care." But the reaction of my friend, that's what I remember. That's why
Yeah.
I remember that she actually stood up and she got mad about it. And I was like, that's great. I mean, if everybody would react like that, things like that wouldn't happen. And that's, I think, what people are saying, that it's not enough to be a non-racist. You need to be an anti-racist. Like, you need to be actively against racism. Like, stood up when something is wrong, you speak it out loud.
Yeah.
So that was one. And then we had, I think, I don't remember the third one. The second one was, the second one was I was in Austria, walked in the store looking for some hardware stuff. And then I asked the guy at the counter if he had some tools or whatever. I don't know what I was looking for. And he went like, oh, I don't have this type of equipment for niggers.
Well, this is not microaggressions. Also, I think the first thing.
I was like, what? That was pure racism, and I was like, huh?
Wow.
And I just left. I was like, I'm just going out of here because, what for? To discuss with him for what?
Yeah.
And that was a shock. I was like, what? Like, what did you, like, it took me a few days just to realize, like, how? Like, how could you be so direct? I just asked you, I was going to buy something in your store, but I just let it happen. And the third thing, the thing that really, really, like, hurt me, and then I was like, oh my God, this is so wrong to be, like, racist or not to like people that are different. 2016, I went in Italy, backpack tripping with friends. I'm a very unlucky and clumsy person. I had an accident in Rome, so I actually opened here my heel, that one, and then super deep so you could see my bone, and I was bleeding like hell. And go to the emergency room, and they tell me, okay, they barely registered me. They just said sit there, and then we'll come. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I waited like 5 hours. It was 40 degrees, and then there was no one left in the waiting room, and I started crying because I was bleeding and then I was in pain, and I had my two other friends with me, and I was like, I can't take it anymore. Like, when? And then that's again when another friend stood up and went at the reception and started like making a scene, saying there are no patients. She's in there. She's crying. She's bleeding for five hours. You didn't do shit. Like, what's up? And then they took me in. There was no one in that ER. And then they looked at it, and they spoke Italian. I speak French. I couldn't understand what they said. And they were like, oh, well, she doesn't have an Italian insurance. And I kept telling them in English, but in Italy they don't speak very good English. And I kept telling them, I have a private insurance. I will pay for my treatment. Just treat me. And they kept saying in Italian, oh, she has no insurance. Oh, probably where she comes from, they don't have one anyone. So they just put it too strapped, put it alcohol, put it too strapped, told me not to walk and to go home. What do you do when something like that happens? You believe the doctor. I believed the doctor. I was like, okay, the doc said it's fine, should be fine. Go back, try to sightseeing, go back home. It's 1 a.m. and I go to bed, and then I wake up my girlfriends. I'd be like, girls, I can't, like, it's still bleeding. I'm in pain. It's not right. Like, this can't be good. We go to another hospital. Like, we go back to the tourist dispensary, and then I tell them I don't want to go to that hospital because they don't want it to take care of me. They send me to another hospital, and I go in there, and I literally had to translate what I had with Google so the woman could understand me. And then I was crying because I was just devastated. I was like, please just help me, like, do something. Same story. Same story. They were just like, oh, she probably doesn't have an insurance. People like that don't have insurance. So they just opened the wound, cleaned it, and restrapped me and told me, don't walk on it. So I had no choice. We just arrived in Italy, and then I was just went to a pharmacy, asked the pharmacist, and the pharmacist was super nice and gave me stuff to disinfect and all. They didn't give me nothing. A week later, I came in Austria, and my doctor was horrified. I mean, you can't see, guys, but you can still see here the bump. It will
Yeah.
never come back.
Yeah, it's really
It's yeah.
like a,
It took me 6 months to heal, and the doctor here was horrified because the first things first, he asked me if I got a tetanus shot. I did not, and he was like, "Well, maybe you're having the infection and you're dying, and I don't know that you have it because that's the first thing they should have done to you." I was like, "Well, they don't wanted to do it because they said people like me don't have insurance." And the doctor was shocked and give me all the treatment when I came here, and then it took me 6 months to heal. But this was clearly because I was not white enough, or because I didn't have a European Union insurance, even though I had a travel insurance. I had a private insurance. And that day really hurted me, and I was like, that was just like, it was not a minor injury, but I mean, like, I could have lived
you
with
can.
it. But
Yeah,
imagine
yeah.
someone, I
You
don't know.
could no, you could die. I mean, something
If,
could
if,
happen
if I
to
had
you.
an infection, yeah,
Yeah.
I would have eventually. But if someone had, I don't know, a heart
And
attack or a car accident,
and I mean, still, like whatever the person is, you as another person can help, and you can do stuff if you're a doctor
I think
for free. I
as a
know.
doctor, I'm like, as a doctor, isn't it? I think it's one of the thing you do. It's one of the thing you do. That's why you do that job, because you want to help people no matter where they come from. I don't know. I mean, 2 times that happened in 2 different hospitals. I don't know if it was I was not lucky and I just got the wrong
Doctors.
people, the wrong people that were on that rotation. I don't know, but it happened 2 times, and and it's not for this reason that I have a bad opinion on Italian people. Not at all.
I mean, we know that Italians don't have the best healthcare.
They don't have the best health. Yeah, well, they don't have the best health care, and they don't have the. They're not probably the most open-minded people, but this doesn't change. Like, I have nothing against people from Italy, even though I could, but I don't, because again, I'm a passive person, and I'm like, okay, this happened. I'm fine now, but this is something that shocked me because I was like, what if it's someone who's darker? What if I would have been darker? And what if I was really a refugee? What would have happened then? So, yeah.
Yoga community. However, we are both yogis, so I am mostly Vinyasa teacher, and Iman is teaching Yin yoga. And I have this story from my teacher training that happened in Thailand. I think this is interesting topic mostly for my viewers or for whoever is watching this
That
or
does
listening
yoga.
and does yoga. And it was an international teacher training. It was in Thailand, as I said, by two Americans that were Asian, both of them. Then there was so it was full. It was almost 50 people. I'm not sure now about the number, but it was really a huge teacher training. So many people from all around the world, from China, from US, from Europe, from Australia, so everywhere. And
Non-Africans, no colored people, I guess.
there were Thai people,
Yeah.
there were a lot of Asians, there were a lot of white people, and then I actually realized that our teacher, one of the teachers that came for a part, Matthew Baldron, was actually black person, and he also mentioned it. So he realized and he knows about it, and he also talked about it. I know that he talked to a friend of mine that he he's so aware to be one of the few colored people or black people in yoga.
Yoga world.
He's from France, which already says something, I think, about the country. And as you said, that it's a little bit more diverse. And I think in yoga, I mean, here already there is zero diversity. So I bet you are the only
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
in every yoga class.
It's a pity. I mean, there's many. When I read your question, I started to think about why. What's the reason? I think the reason was pretty clear for me. Is I think when yoga was introduced to the Western world, it was a privileged class that could do yoga, and privileged upper class were mainly. I mean, I will talk about the States and so maybe in Europe as well. Probably people that were earning more, people earning more. Again, they're white people. So I think that's why a reason when yoga was introduced, so many white. I hate saying white and black because for me it's like
Me too.
we never did that. So Caucasian, okay, let's say a white person would do more yoga because they had more income, so they could afford for going to yoga. Versus on the other side, colored people that came from a middle to a lower class could not afford it. And I think this is also something, in my opinion, that's something that I would accuse also the yoga industry, that the yoga industry was extremely
Exclusive, they didn't want other.
exactly. It's like it's really exclusive, and until today, I mean, when you have some yoga studios, it's fine to want to have exclusivity, to have a certain type of clientele, but not all yoga studios should be that way, in my opinion. Or not everybody needs to profit so much from the yoga industry that there are no diversity. And this is something I think it's a combination of really the fact, the history that it came, and it was more a white people type of thing because they have more money to afford
More time.
and more time as well because they don't have to have 2 3 4 jobs. So I think it's really a social background that explains that there's just more white people within the yoga community. And also another problem I think now is, like you said, you spoke about it before, people from a community don't want to do something from another community because they don't want to be judged like, oh, you're doing yoga, that's a white people's thing. Actually, it's not. It's actually from India, and Indian people are actually colored too, so we should all, you know what I mean? But it goes in the people's like cells everywhere, and then they think, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing that because maybe it's not seen as it's like when I see Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, one of the best golfer in the world. He's probably the only colored guy that went so far in golfing, and he literally went against the current to be where he is. Or Serena Williams, or so many athletes, colored athletes, that had to fight so much because of the skin of their color to be able to succeed or to be the best in a discipline that was mainly seen as a white dominant discipline, like tennis. We all know tennis was mainly white people sport
And
because
it's again because of the
because it's expensive to play
rich
tennis,
people
right?
doing it
Exactly.
golf the same.
Exactly. And another thing I think nowadays that is very important, and I'm happy that some brands are changing that, is the fact that still when colored people I think are a little bit less not interested but spending more time on their wellness or in their health. It's also because everything that has to do with social media or with media in general always targets white people. I mean, you buy a yoga magazine, they're likely to see a model that looks like more like you than looks like me, or someone who's a bit smaller, curvier. It's very categorized. You should be like that, and that's what yoga looks like. So when you're a colored person or an Hispanic person, and then you go, oh, I want to do yoga, but you can't really project yourself because you feel like, oh, I don't really look like her. I don't know if I should do that. And I think this is something that plays a big role as well. And I find it so cool, so amazing that so many yoga brands since maybe 1 or 2 years. It's so sad that it's just recent, but so many brands starting to have campaigns with really diversity in terms of color, of body shapes, age. We're not going to be 25 forever and not have wrinkles. So having really different type of women, different type of bodies, different type of colors, and I think that's yoga. Yoga is really yoga and running, because I'm a runner. Is really, I think, one of the two practices that everybody can do, can all
Yeah.
do it. And just because the media said you should not do it, it's not why you shouldn't be doing it.
So another question or another part of the question was also if you are following, because I was talking about the diversity in my feed on Instagram, that there is zero, almost none. From 600 plus 600 people that I follow, I found nine people that were black, and I find it hard even to search for them. So do you have someone? Or is it hard for you also to find some kind of
Inspirational yogis
yeah, like someone you can follow and
and
inspired?
inspiration. The problem is because there's so less colored people already practicing yoga, just like normal yogis. It makes it also very narrow to find people that are just like someone like Mathieu, who are really successful and really like present on the social media platform. So I know that there's a lot of people that are very present. When I was practicing in Toronto when I was over the Christmas holiday, and I was so happy because in the studio I was going, we were I don't know, we were 45 people per class. You would have 30 to 40% of colored people. And I went to so many classes, not knowing the teacher, just showing up there because it was a new studio. And the teacher, the instructor, was colored or Hispanic or Asian. And I was like, wow, that is amazing. This is what diversity looks like. Because it's different if you're a colored person and you just go to a class where there's only, non-colored people representing. It doesn't represent society. And that is the first time in my entire life that I went to a studio with so many, there was diversity everywhere. And that was really beautiful. Back to your question is, I do follow some yogis, but it's extremely hard to find them because, again, maybe they don't have the people maybe are going to tend to share less about what they do, or maybe they don't want to share too much because maybe they feel they're not good enough. I think there's a lot of things that we think it's, oh, they shouldn't think like that, but
Well, not everyone
place
is into social media, so
first of
you
all
have to be special
to
for
like it. Yeah.
to do that.
I do follow some yogis, and I can definitely give you the
We can put them in the
in
description.
description. Yeah, because I don't know, I don't remember the names.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
of
told you
course.
about it. But for instance, a brand like Lululemon, they have a lot of colored ambassadors, and that's amazing because they're also shown on their Instagram page, and that's how I discovered actually a lot of yogi or yoga professors through that. Because again, it's a brand that's really trying to have more diversity.
I think that's it because
Super.
we already spent so
Like
long.
2 hours chatting with you.
Thank you so much for allowing me to interview it. It was my first time. I'm still a interview version, or I was.
I think you did good. I think we did good. How did we do, guys? Leave us a heart because we don't know about it. I think you did good.
If you ended up watching until the end, then you have to put a comment saying what are they going to say. So write something something random. Literally, you can write something random.
Banana bread or rainbow.
Rainbow because it's also the Pride month.
Yeah,
So
oh, true, it's a Pride Month. Rainbow. Whatever you want to write. Ben and Jerry's because they're supporting now the black cause. Yeah, only eat Ben and Jerry's. Yeah.
but only the vegan.
Yes. Sure.
Thank you so much for watching this, and yeah, see you in the next video. Maybe we will do some collaboration again in the future.
Some yin class.
And make sure to also follow Iman. I mean, she has a business with these very nice minimalistic bracelets, which is how I got to know her. So make sure to follow that. That's more important to support her business because why not? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.